For budget gamers, used parts have always been the sneaky shortcut to crazy performance per dollar. But in 2026, the secondhand jungle is different. It's no longer grab any old CPU, GPU board, and RAM and call it a build. Modern titles and their shiny features can expose weak links fast. Outdated drivers, missing upscalers, poor power efficiency, or the wrong PCIe lanes. Between brand new gear that costs a kidney and true e-waste that belongs in the bin, there's a sweet middle ground where the right used parts still slap. Today, I'll show you how to find it, what to buy, what to avoid, and how to make every dollar do more frames. Let's navigate the 2026 used market the smart way. Before we even talk about cheap but powerful GPUs, there's something most people never say out loud. Heading into 2026, what really determines your gaming experience with a used graphics card isn't the FPS numbers on a benchmark chart. It's the driver support and locked features. Manufacturers have two classic tricks: the stick, slowly dropping optimization for older architectures, and the carrot, adding new features like AI upscaling, frame generation, or upgraded ray tracing, but keeping them exclusive to newer GPUs. The result? A card that ran perfectly last year might suddenly stutter, crash, or refuse to launch a new game today. Some older AMD GPUs now rely on community drivers, while certain NVIDIA architectures have quietly been moved to slower update cycles with fewer optimizations. So here's the real secret to buying used GPUs in 2026. Don't just look at the price tag, check the driver page. See if that card still gets support for the latest games and whether the titles you play depend on those new rendering technologies. Understand this unspoken rule, and you'll avoid a lot of those great-on-paper deals that turn into expensive headaches later. Continuing the driver talk, let's get into the psychological game of features. 2026, and gaming isn't just about raw FPS anymore. It's about how you get those frames, through upscaling and frame generation. On the NVIDIA side, DLSS is a huge win. But here's the catch. The best version of frame generation is locked to RTX 40 series cards. Sure, older RTX cards still benefit from DLSS, but if you're hoping for those smooth AI-generated frames, don't hold your breath. AMD, on the other hand, is catching up fast. FSR 3 and 4 are supported in more and more titles, and they run on a wider range of GPUs. So if you're rocking an older card, FSR might just be your lifeline. And yeah, ray tracing looks stunning, until your FPS tanks. For used GPUs, the smarter move is prioritizing upscaling first. Smooth gameplay beats fancy reflections any day. Golden rule. Before buying a card, open the support list for the games you actually play. Check whether they include DLSS, FSR, or frame generation, and whether your GPU can use them. If not, don't fall for those flashy demo videos that make every old card look like it suddenly transforms into a dragon. In short, used GPUs still hold up in 2026, as long as you pick the right ecosystem. Choose wisely and you'll game comfortably for years. Pick wrong, and you're in for a headache. Here's something that most people forget when chasing a cheap GPU deal: power and electricity. A lot of older high-end cards only feel powerful because they burn watts like crazy. The GPU alone can draw 200 to 250 watts, and the whole system can easily hit 350 to 450 watts under load. Quick rule of thumb: check the TDP or TBP, then add 30 to 40% headroom when picking your PSU. And please don't trust those shady 500-watt no-name power supplies. Make sure your PSU has the proper 6 or 8-pin connectors, and that your case has decent airflow. Always clean and repaste old GPUs before firing them up. Want to save on your power bill? Try undervolting or reducing the power limit by 10 to 20%. You'll barely lose performance, but your system will run cooler, quieter, and way more efficient. Because let's be honest, a used GPU is only cheap if it doesn't cost you extra in heat, noise, and electricity later. Don't let your bottleneck come from something as basic as your operating system or CPU instruction set. With Windows 11, older CPUs are often off the supported list, and even if you manage to bypass it, updates can still break things. On top of that, a lot of modern games and engines now require AVX2 instructions. If your CPU doesn't support it, you're asking for crashes, black screens, or major FPS drops. Here's the quick rule: avoid very old Intel chips without AVX2 and skip AMD FX/AM3 entirely for 2026, okay? Intel Gen 4 to 6 for light gaming only. Ideally, upgrade to Gen 8 Plus or AMD Zen 3 to be safe. Also watch your pairings. A weak single-core CPU plus heavy driver load can tank performance, not especially with some NVIDIA cards. And one last quick tip before you open your wallet. Check your PCIe bandwidth. A Gen 3 X16 slot is fine, but plugging a newer X4/X8 GPU into Gen 3 can choke performance fast. Alright, we've locked down the 4 big bottlenecks: drivers, features, power, and CPU/OS compatibility, plus one PCIe reminder. Now it's time for the part you've been waiting for. Under $80. Entry-level apprentices. These cards are basically your learning buddies, not beasts, but still capable of solid gaming. Look for a Radeon RX 5808 GB if it's clean, quiet, and not mined to death, or a GTX 1066 GB if the price is genuinely low. Just remember, always check drivers, video outputs, and watch for any signs of mining wear before buying. $80 to $140. The sweet spot tier. This is where value meets durability. The GTX 1070 or 1070 Ti are still great for 1080 gaming. And on the red side, cards like the RX 5500 XT, 5600 XT, or even 5700 XT are strong options. Go for 8 GB of VRAM whenever possible. It'll save you from hitting memory walls and heavier titles. $140 to $220. Balanced power and features. Here's where performance starts feeling modern. Cards like the RTX 2060, Super, or even 2080 give you access to DLSS and ray tracing. No frame generation needed for smooth 1080p gaming. If you're more of an AMD fan, Vega 56 or 64 can be good choices, but only if you know how to handle power draw, thermals, and undervolting. And yeah, give them a proper cleaning before you game. Your CPU is the conductor of the orchestra, and if the conductor's weak, the whole GPU section falls out of rhythm. The 2026 formula is simple. If you're building on DDR4, go for a Ryzen 5 5600 or Ryzen 7 5700X. They're basically auto picks. Cheap, powerful, cool running, and easy to upgrade later. If you're still on an older Intel platform, Gen 8 to 10 i5s or i7s are fine, as long as the price is really low. Don't overpay, you're missing PCIe 4.0 and sitting on an aging platform. For ultra-budget builders, Xeon E5 V3/V4 X99 is the ultimate price-to-performance hack for multi-threaded games. Just remember, AliExpress boards, turbo unlock, RAM tuning, BIOS mods, you've got to know your stuff to make it shine. Avoid AMD FX/AM3 and Intel Gen 3 or older entirely for gaming in 2026. A weak single-core CPU paired with a heavy driver, especially some Green Team GPUs, can tank your frame rates fast. In fact, early-gen Ryzen chips usually pair better with AMD GPUs for smoother frame times. Golden rule: aim for 6 to 8 cores, strong single-core clocks, and full AVX2 support. Once your CPU foundation is solid, every GPU from our best buys list will finally show its full potential. Alright, and let's wrap everything up with a 1-minute cheat sheet for scoring the best used GPU deals. Step 1. Know your games and features. Does your game support DLSS or FSR? Do you need frame generation, or is basic upscaling enough? If you want top-tier DLSS, go for a well-priced RTX 20 or 30 series. If your games lean on FSR, older AMD cards are still solid. Step 2. Prioritize VRAM and drivers over raw FPS. Go for at least 8 GB of VRAM and check whether the driver is still mainline, not legacy or EOL. A cheap card with dying driver support is only cheap today. Step 3. Match your platform. On PCIe Gen 3, stick with X16 GPUs. Newer X4/X8 cards can choke bandwidth. And if your CPU lacks AVX2 or can't handle Windows 11, stop right there. Don't buy the GPU first. Step 4. Power and cooling. Take the GPU's TDP/TBP and add 30 to 40% headroom for a quality PSU with proper 6/8 pin connectors and good airflow. Need to tame heat or noise? Try undervolting or lowering power limit by 10 to 20%. Step 5. Pick your tier. Ultra budget, RX 5808 GB, clean history, or GTX 1066 GB if dirt cheap. just accept aging drivers. Best value RTX 2060/2060 Super/2080 or RX 5500 XT/5600 XT/5700 XT. Perfect balance of price, performance, and features. New DDR4 builds. Ryzen 55600 or Ryzen 75700X plus one of those GPUs equals auto smooth 1080p gaming. In the end, the real secret to buying used PC parts in 2026 isn't about FPS on paper. It's about long-term driver support, the features your games actually use, and how well your platform keeps up. Check smart, buy smart, and you'll get a deal that truly lasts. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone hunting for a solid budget build. See you in the next one. Wait, oh my god, what the just happened to my GPU? You won't believe what I just scored. 5 GPUs for $50. Yep, 5 cards. From a seller on Facebook Marketplace. Right now, a single good enough gaming GPU runs around $100. I paid half that for 5. Sounds like a steal, right? Well, not exactly. These things come with problems. Most of them aren't perfect. Some might be flaky. Worst case, they can fail. And even take other components with them. Risky. But that's why I'm here. I'll be the guinea pig and test every card. And here's the fun part. If I can bring any of them back to life, I'm giving it away to one of you, for free. Alright, GPU number 1. Let's see what we're working with. Now it's time for the real question. Can this old GPU still come back to life? You can tell right away from the sticker. GT730, 2 GB. But unfortunately, it's not the DDR5 version. It's DDR3, and even worse, it's running on a 64-bit bus, which is seriously underpowered by today's standards. On the outside, though, it actually looks pretty clean and well kept. Taking a closer look, there are no signs of damaged components or repair marks, although the void sticker is missing. Hopefully, whoever opened it up just wanted to reapply thermal paste. Now it's time for the real question. Can this old GPU still come back to life? Since I'll be testing multiple GPUs back to back, there's always a bit of risk to the rest of the hardware. So I've set up a cheap test bench just in case anything goes wrong. If something blows up, at least it's under control. Alright, time to plug it in and power it on. Oh, it actually booted up on the first try. Straight into Windows, working just fine. But man, that resolution instantly took me back about 10 years. Next step, let's try installing the drivers. And here's where the problems start. The GPU refuses to install its drivers no matter what I do. It could be a hardware issue or maybe some kind of software conflict. I even wiped all the old drivers completely. Still no luck. I'll admit, I'm not exactly a hardware repair expert, so for now, I'll let this card handle basic display output while I check the rest of the system. Right now, it's selling for around $20, but with this issue, it's barely worth a quarter of that. Anyway, let's move on to our next patient and see if it's in better shape. Oh no, the label's completely gone. There's no way to tell exactly which model this is just by looking at it. But judging from the dual 6-pin power connectors, I'd guess it's from the NVIDIA 900 series. Visually, it still looks pretty clean. The PCB is spotless, the output ports aren't rusted, and the only thing showing its age is the heat pipes, which have darkened over time. But that's fine. It's time to plug it in and find out what this mystery GPU really is. And of course, whether it still works. The GPU booted up and displayed an image just fine. And even better, Windows automatically installed the driver right away. That's a great sign, meaning the card is still being properly recognized and the drivers are stable. Just as I suspected, it's a GTX 970 with 4 GB of VRAM. And honestly, the performance is still rock solid, even in full HD gaming. Next, I fired up Heaven Benchmark to test stability. And after about 30 seconds, oh no! The GPU crashed completely. No signal, no display, just the fan still spinning. Looks like we've got a VRAM issue here. I did a quick reset and thankfully the display came back. Watching YouTube or doing light tasks works perfectly fine, so at this point I'd say this GPU is only good for display output or media playback. Gaming is off the table. After saying goodbye to the GTX 970, 4 GB, sadly a lost cause, we're moving on to the GT 1030, 2 GB. It's not exactly a powerhouse, and even when it first launched, it wasn't meant to impress. But even today, you can still find it in plenty of budget builds, usually as a replacement for integrated graphics. Its main job is simple: handle office work and light gaming at full HD. Right now, though, all I care about is whether it still works. So let's plug it in and fire it up. The fan spins, but there's no display output. All right, maybe the output port's a bit dusty. Let's give it a quick clean. Still nothing, just a black screen. Luckily, there's another output, a DVI port. So let's try that. And yes, it's alive. It even installed the drivers automatically, no setup needed. That's a good sign. Next step, stability test. I'm running Heaven Benchmark, and after a few minutes, temps are solid and performance looks consistent. So far, it seems like this little GPU has survived. But just to be sure, I'll jump into a real game test next to confirm how well it actually performs. Next up, we've got the GTX 960 2GB, a card that was considered pretty powerful back in its day. This version comes with a slight factory overclock, running at 1216 MHz base and boosting up to 1279 MHz in OC mode. However, with only 2 GB of VRAM, it's definitely showing its age when it comes to modern titles. Still, the GTX 960 was once a real workhorse. Solid performance and great efficiency for its time. But make no mistake, this card draws quite a bit of power, requiring at least a 400-watt PSU according to the manufacturer's specs. Now comes the moment I've been waiting for. Let's see if this old warrior is still a hidden gem, or just another relic of the past. Alright, GPU's in place. Let's plug it in and power it on. And wait, oh my god, what the just happened to my GPU? Oh no, I can't believe this. It's fried, completely dead. We just witnessed a GPU funeral right here. We need to keep this thing far away from the other components before it takes something else down with it. Now the real question, did the power supply and mainboard combo survive? Let's test it. Oh no, the PSU's gone too. It's not powering up anymore. Alright, maybe the motherboard and CPU are still fine. Let's swap in another power supply. And nothing. Dead silence. I can't believe it. I just fried a $30 power supply and my entire mainboard combo along with it. That's it. I guess this is where our unlucky GPU story ends. A tragic finale for what could have been a comeback. And finally, our last contender, the GTX 1060, 3GB. I'm not sure if this one can make up for all the losses today, but maybe, just maybe, it'll turn things around. This is the compact version, perfect for small form factor builds. But as you probably know, performance-wise, it's no different from the larger dual or triple fan models. The only real differences are cooling efficiency and noise levels. What makes this card even more interesting is the price. It's currently going for around $50, so if it works perfectly, this could actually end up being a profitable deal. Now comes the big moment. Now let's power it on and see if we're about to witness a little miracle. I decided to grab another PC combo to test this GPU again. Honestly, my hands were still shaking as I pressed the power button. Alright, let's count it down. 3, 2, 1, and oh, finally, the last bit of hope is alive. I could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Next step, I installed the latest drivers and, of course, ran the Heaven Benchmark, because that's always the real test. At medium settings, the GPU ran pretty hot, around 70 degrees Celsius, but that's expected for a single fan card. The result, around 125 frames per second. Stable, no crashes, even under load. Honestly, that's a solid deal in my book. But then I noticed something. Some of the screws looked like they'd been opened before, which made me wonder if it had been repaired inside. Still, it works perfectly fine. No issues, runs smooth. And for me, that alone makes it totally worth it. After testing all 5 GPUs, only 2 of them turned out to be fully functional. Though with the GT 1030, 2GB, only 1 DisplayPort actually works. But hey, at least it's alive. Now it's time for the fun part. Let's fire up Fortnite and see how these cards perform in real gameplay. At low settings, the GT 1030, 2GB managed to pull between 100 and 150 frames per second, averaging around 100 frames per second. Even while running at full load, the temperature stayed at just 58 degrees Celsius, incredibly power efficient at only 30 watts. As for the GTX 1060.3 GB, things got a bit hotter. I might need to reapply the thermal paste soon. But performance-wise, it was impressive, hovering between 150 and 200 FPS with an average of about 140 FPS. So those are the results for the 2 survivors from our GPU lineup. And here's the fun part. If you'd like to get one of these GPUs for free, drop a comment below. I'll be hosting a giveaway to send them out to some of you guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more crazy PC experiments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.